They're good to go. Let's check your participants and see if you have any board members we need to move on. You guys. Mr. Chair, you're good to call your meeting.
Okay, our meeting has been called to order. Let's start with roll call.
Yep. Chair Klein.
Here.
Vice Chair Robinson. Present. Nice. Member Adams. Member Harris.
Here.
Member Kenny. Member Oliveri.
Here.
Member Pawnee.
Here.
Member Stitzer.
Here.
Member Van Houten.
Here.
All right. Mr. Chair, you have the forum.
All right, great. Welcome, everybody. Let's start off with public comment. Let's start with folks online first. I see Judy Friedman has your hand raised. Judy, you may begin speaking public comment when you're ready.
I'm just asking to please be promoted as a panelist so I can follow your meeting better.
Yeah, Judy, can you hear us?
Yes.
Perhaps not.
Yes, I can.
I wasn't being as direct as I can agree with you. Next time I will just be like this.
Okay, how about any public comment in the room?
Mr. Chair, you have two public comments. The
I'm
first
sorry,
one
were
is
you
Mr.
able to hear my
Krieger.
comment?
Okay.
Okay, I thought that I wouldn't talk, but now I don't think you should lease it out to the, that's a hard for everybody.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm sorry, were you able to hear my comment?
McCain. Hi, everyone. If you did want to go to the podium, you're welcome to, and you have 3 minutes.
Noting for the record, Mr. Chair, that member Adams is present online.
Okay. Hey, Taylor.
Ready? Okay. Good morning, everyone. I didn't write it down. But my name is Brianna McCain, and I am a newer resident to Reno. I've been here about 2 years and have to work. I wanted to share a bit of kind of outsider perspective coming in, because when I first moved here, one of the things that really made us fall in love with the city was the Believe Plaza, the city plaza, because we attended Western Lights, we attended roller skating in the park. We had a lot of opportunities to meet local people as well as local businesses of the area. And it was something that, again, just made us feel like we were really a welcome part of this community. And so since I saw that perhaps this private business was going to be taking it over, it made me a little disappointed and sad that we might be losing this public resource that gave us so many opportunities to again connect with other businesses and other people who live here in the local area. I do think that because it's such a low barrier to entry for the Eddy, if this is an area that you want to revitalize or you want to take additional steps to maybe improve, opening it up to either other proposals or at least additional public comment would be my recommendation. But in general, I would say that I am opposed to taking this public resource and kind of allowing some sort of private entity to come in and control it, because it's something special and it's really nice and different to have something like that so close to this Riverwalk area that is this public resource for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comment? Okay, let's move into closed public comment. We'll move into approval of the agenda for today. Here's what I'm thinking. We'll move through our typical introductory items and our business items. We'll go B1, B2, B4, and B3 so that we can kind of move our action items up a little sooner. Other than that, I am asking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Nettie Oliverio.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second, Kurt Stitzer.
Okay, any discussion on the agenda? You guys good with that? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, agenda approved. A4 is just our approval of minutes from the previous May 4th meeting. If you've had a chance to review that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from May 4th.
So moved.
Moved by member Harris. Do I have a second?
Second, Nettie Oliverio.
Seconded by member Olivero. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, the minutes are approved. Let's move on to chair report. I'll just make a quick mention that Vice Chair Robertson and I attended the presiding officer training the other day. It was pretty good. I brought the PowerPoint if anybody's interested in kind of looking at these notes. Just kind of best practices on how to manage effective meeting. Do you want to make any comments on that?
No, okay.
So that's it for me. We'll move into business items. B1 redevelopment agency project updates. This is all in our packets. If anybody has any questions or would like it verbally discussed, let me know that. Otherwise, you can just review that and then we can move in to the next item. Any questions? Going around? Anything online? Okay. Okay, let's get into B2 discussion and recommendation for the parking gallery operational assessment for possible action.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian McCarter, Revitalization Manager for the record. So the item before you is a few months ago, you may recall that we entertained multiple entities trying to purchase the old movie theater along the river. They all wanted their own designated parking agreement with this agency for the use of the parking gallery on 135 North Sierra, as well as the 118 residential project going up behind it. And so we're talking about possibly bringing a potential agreement before this body, and we decided that this is three-dimensional math. The better option would be to do a utilization study to figure out how we manage capacity of the parking gallery. And so as we went down that process and working with Colliers, who's our property manager on the site, it was decided to expand that a little to look at the parking technologies, the current status and upkeep of the building, management and operations, the rate structure, as well as how do we plan for midday use, evening use, residential use, and the potential to have 600 users on a Sunday when Livingstone's church is operating. So Dixon was brought on through Colliers, and they looked at everything soup to nuts over a few months, including some site visits. In January, there was a stakeholder engagement meeting that was for residents in the area, businesses, tenants that have businesses in the area, as well as just the general public. So a lot of feedback on that was done. And they issued a report, and it's kind of a bit of four reports. They've summarized it into one, but essentially identifies how we can manage utilization, supply and demand at the structure, the proposed rate changes to meet us put us on the same benchmark as our peer cities in similar markets, some necessary changes due to operations and management, and then parking technology and upgrades to the facility. And so that report is in front of you. I can actually go through the presentation and kind of summarize a few of these. With the clicker. Yeah. All right. All right. Great. And so as I mentioned, part of this presentation, we'll just summarize what the operational assessment found. Utilization, operations, rates, and stakeholder engagement go through the proposed recommendations that Dixon put there in terms of short-term, long-term, and priority. So high priority, below priority. And then get your feedback on some recommendations and possible implementation that we should take to the agency board to receive approval or get their direction on to address some of the things mentioned in the report. It's just so an overview. The address is 135 North Sierra Street. It's a parking garage, but it's called the parking gallery. Many people don't know that it even has a name. There is a sign on the edge of the building that actually states that that's the parking gallery. The redevelopment agency bonded and built this facility in '93. The cost was $12.5 million. There's about 592 parking stalls. That number fluctuates in terms of dedicated spaces. Some have been combined for handicap use. I think somewhere in the report it said 600 spaces, but if you went in there and counted them right now, that'd be 592. We do have 4 tenants in the building. It is former Silver Peak. I cannot think of the name
It's
the
this,
business.
some gold sushi or.
Mariscos. Yeah. Reno Envy, which is now Home Means Nevada, is located there. Puzzle Room, Bumblebee Blooms, and the post office are our tenants in that building. Many of them have been there for a decade or more. Colliers is our property manager. So many years, it has been managed by Colliers with the reports to our property analysts here at the city. So the rents, everything else have been gone. We didn't really take a look at it until we kind of talked to Dixon about doing this operational study. And then we, RDA, do not manage the parking operations. Colliers hires out to a group called JT Enterprises, who handles all the parking, all the security, all the validations and the permits at the facility currently. So as I mentioned, we had a request for future parking from the Reformer project, which is the former Riverside movie theater, as well as the 118 West apartments, which is 86 apartment units. Trying to figure out long-term capacity, operating, parking. The user experience is one that came up. We do have lights out in that facility, so it was requested that we upgrade the lighting and maybe even do some wayfinding signs. And then how we better manage revenue. We currently do get a monthly report from Colliers that states all the incomes, issues with the facility, but it is not sort of an operational, it's just a statement of account. The statement from the report says the parking gallery has sufficient capacity to support current and future downtown demand. Its performance is constrained by fragmented management, inefficient allocation of parking resources, outdated operational systems, and inconsistent customer experience. The findings for the facility and utilization did find that the parking is usually utilized by office tenants midweek during the day. So as the end of the day, the workday sort of ends, that parking gallery goes underutilized in the evenings, and especially on weekends. I've never seen a car parked on the roof of that facility. I don't even see cars parked on the top 3 floors, so there's definitely capacity. And then over the years, some tenants in the area or some users have gotten lease agreements with the redevelopment agency separate from Colliers, and then some people have gotten agreements with the operator. So there's 3 different bodies who have promised parking spaces to people. Technically, the only entity that has reserved parking is the post office. When they were moved from the old parking site to this one down there, they were promised a loading zone on Sierra Street and then 10 reserved parking spots for short-term 10 to 15-minute parking. So I don't think that'll go away because that was in that 10 to 30-year lease that they received. They just renewed their lease for another 10 years. So that those reserved parking spots will need to stay per the lease. When it goes to operations and management, lack of coordinated management and oversight, there is regular scheduled maintenance, but it's not proactive. It's usually when something breaks, it gets addressed. If there's a cleanliness issue, it gets addressed. There was a situation where rebar was starting to show on the ramp. And so once that was identified, it was addressed, but not a lot of proactive identification of facility needs. Vendor performance, you know, we do have security, we have a landscaper, we have other companies, but obviously the landscaping has died. And so the rocks have been placed in the landscaping areas. So we do have vendors that it hasn't been managed appropriately. Responsiveness to tenants, this is morely a tenant issue, not operations of the parking structure itself. Potentially with the change, we could separate parking operations and then separate communications with the tenants separately. And then tracking and reporting. So as I mentioned, we do get a monthly report, but the parking technology is not updated. So we do not get data on parking. We should be able to find what's the average time of cars when people come in. We don't get that data with the current technology and equipment we have. Stakeholder feedback. Communication is limited, cleanliness has been an issue. There's a bit of safety perception. Validations, when the Wi-Fi goes down, they revert to cash. A lot of people don't carry cash, so there's been some incidences of some friction points, I guess, with people trying to leave and not having cash. And then wayfinding challenges, there's paper signs throughout that building that are kind of handwritten that should be addressing wayfinding a little bit better. And last is rates. There is demand for that facility. Revenue has been flat for many, many years. It costs about $900,000 to operate that facility. It usually, we have about the same in expenses. We do have a fairly healthy reserve that Colliers manages in case the elevator breaks down or in case something needs to be repaired immediately. There is a reserve account that hasn't grown much over the years. I mentioned validation is difficult, but the finding did say that our rates are low. So if you look at San Antonio, you look at Spokane, Sacramento, and even other garages in this market, we're charging about $55 a month for a monthly permit. That gets you 24/7 access. You can park your car and leave it there as long as you want for $55 a month. Our peer group for 24/7 access is about $140 a month. In the report, you can look at it if you want to go down the rabbit hole. A lot of garages have two-tier parking systems so that you have a midweek if you're an office worker and you want to park there 8 to 5. It's a reduced rate. If you want 24/7 evenings and weekend access, it's a full rate. So it's a two-tier parking system. And that is something Dixon did recommend in the report, just not immediately. That's more of a longer term item. Hourly rates, our peer group is $4 an hour. We charge $3 an hour. They recommended that stay the same, but once the improvements are made, once the facility is brought up in better operations, that could be something considered in the future. So no hourly rate change proposed at the moment. The recommended actions. One of the recommended actions is to bring on our own parking operator that would report directly to the redevelopment agency that would manage everything parking related, from maintenance to cleaning to managing the technology, engaging and selling permits. So they would actually go out and seek out businesses or operators in the area and see if they want to use that parking gallery. So they'll do some marketing around it, but they would report directly to us and not the property manager. And then these parking operators would likely have their own performance standards and cleaning schedules so that we could sort of monitor that. On utilization and access, they recommend getting rid and sort of transitioning out of all those various lease agreements and parking agreements that have been done in the past and just go to a single permit system. They wouldn't come to RDA for that permit. They would go directly to the parking operator and they would have either a website platform or some sort of process, and they would manage parking permits. So we would never have to deal with that. They recommend allocating up to 375 monthly parking permits, and that should fully utilize the facility. We only have about 200 permits right now between some of the businesses in the area, some employees, and then mainly Washoe County employees that still utilize that facility. So there's about 220 permits out there. This recommends going up to about 375. And that delta would include new residents at that 118 apartments, as well as either employees or management of the Livingstone Church. And then anytime we notice that facility hits that 85% utilization, we immediately trigger another assessment and utilization study to figure out how we better management, because at that 85 threshold, now we're sort of reaching capacity. And so we got to figure out how to manage that. I mentioned rates. Their recommendation is to go up to $75 fairly immediately, but that'll likely be after we bring on a new parking operator. They recommend keeping rates at $3, adjusting the monthly permit up to $100 for 24/7 access. That would be a later date. And then this is interesting. They recommend doing that two-tier system. We would go and we would add an additional 225 weekly permits in addition to the 375. We would be technically overselling. So if every person had a permit and wanted to park there, we'd have a capacity issue. But not everyone is using their permits at the same time. Some people work from home on Tuesdays. So there is some threshold where we can oversell, but then not have a capacity issue. And
Did they do a traffic engineering report on that?
No The only thing that was mentioned in the report was that we have a egress problem, that a lot of the times we have the 2 lanes that it's recommended you turn right onto First Street, and that backs up the kiosk line for people trying to get out and pay for their parking, but no traffic study.
Okay.
A traffic study is something that could be addressed.
I'm not saying a full-blown traffic study. A lot of times, you know, when you have shared parking agreements or things like that, you can look at hourly uses of certain business types and or certain users and how those overlap to determine if it's going to exceed capacity when you oversell.
Yep.
And that's just something that's pretty simple and standard. It doesn't require the full.
Yeah. So that is part of the utilization study, and they've modeled it all out based on time and use. I will mention that once we have new tracking data and software, we should be able to tell who is coming in what days. All the data will be right there. We can run reports and figure out exactly where our pain points are and where the opportunities are. I'll also mention that First Street's going to go to a one-way with the Sierra Street Bridge closure, and so that might be something that we have to adapt to in the future. But that wasn't addressed during this plan. Safety and garage conditions. They recommend upgrading the entire facility to LED lighting, establishing a new cleaning program, redoing the wayfinding and signage, and then conducting an engineering assessment report, something that has never been done. So we would hire a structural engineer to go through there, conduct a report, and then probably also assess the life and safety equipment on site as well. There are cameras, there's fire extinguishers, there's things like that that probably need to be addressed and looked at. Bringing on new parking technology. They're recommending replacing the parks system, which is the parking access and revenue control system or revenue capture system. That would include the technology as well as the equipment on site. Implementing a digital validation system. Right now, we have a mix of stamps on the tickets. We have a QR code. We have printable stickers that people can print out and put there. This would take everything and put it into a digital system. With the new system, we'll have more reporting and tracking, and then reduce cash transactions. If there's a potential to have more parking kiosks, where if you're paying for your parking, you can actually pay with cash at the kiosk so that you're not paying the attendant when you leave. And there's also the possibility of going attendantless. What's the name? Gateless, yes. Where you pull in, it tracks your license plate. You have to sign up through an app. But then every time you park in that facility, you drive straight in, you drive straight out, and there's no delays. Just drive right in. And then last, within the year, identify all the potential capital improvements that need to be made to the facility and plan those out over multiple years. This is what it looked like. And we'd recommend, if we take any recommendations towards the agency board, but as proposed in the plan, the first 3 months would be to have this meeting, get recommendations, identify what the operating model would look like with the new parking operator and property manager, procure a new parking manager, and then communicate with all the stakeholders in the area, any changes that are being made. Over the next 3 to 6 months, bring on new parking technology, change the rates, do some short-term improvements, but then long-term, have the full new park system up, have the new rates, and start to look at going to that two-tier pricing model, as well as developing a long-term capital improvement plan.
Kurt Spitzer, for the record, is there a reason that we are proposing adjusting the rate to well below our peers? Seems like a minor incremental adjustment from where we currently are, but still meaningfully below where other peers are and markets, and that may help with the potential of overselling and hitting over capacity as well.
It's a great question. So that is what is recommended in the report. You all are certainly welcome to recommend a different rate. And that's kind of what this presentation is for, is you have the ability to recommend any changes, but I'm just giving a report on what the consultant recommended given our current situation. But you're certainly welcome to adjust that and make recommendations different from the report.
If I could, Mr. Chair, Ashley Barney, Assistant City Manager for the record. I think, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. We don't know the last time that there was a rate increase on these permits, and so I think the consultants thought was a stair-stepped approach, so that way it's not, you know, for all intents and purposes, 100% or a 200% increase right off the bat. Based off of, we heard the feedback from stakeholders that communication has been lacking at best. And so we know that there will need to be extensive outreach from our team before we can make those changes. So I think it is slow integration based off of the current relationship status.
Kurt Stitzer for the record. I'm interested to see what the structural analysis of this thing says and what our potential capital improvement costs could be in the coming 5, 10 beyond years. And that might need to be something that's considered in the rate adjustments. Because building up a reserve is certainly something that's going to take time, because the cost of replacement of that is well above $12.5 million these days. Probably add another zero on it. But, you know, that's something that I think needs to be considered, and not that we need to take that action necessarily right now, but should absolutely be something that is thoroughly thought through. And whoever the new operator is should probably put together a reserve study analysis on when capital improvements are required and what those thresholds are going to be, and what the path to developing enough revenue out of the operations between now and then to cover those costs.
Yeah, it's great. Brian McCarter for the record. And I'll add that we're just getting recommendations, and then from the agency board, we're just going to ask for direction on implementing some of these things. But any changes or contracts or long-term costs will come forward through the regular process of recommendations and approval if it's over the procurement limits. So any rate changes, any long-term contracts, or any capital improvements are gonna have to come through and get approval.
Ask a couple questions, Michael Pine. You mentioned debt. Is the debt all paid off? The original, so there's no debt on this structure?
It will be.
October-ish, it should be, yeah. The
actually,
last debt
yeah.
payment is.
That's why the 900,000 expense you mentioned is that debt
No,
included in that? That's just
No.
operational?
that is just operational. The debt payment is agency specific. So that is for not just that, but other projects that'll be paid off Q1.
And in terms of when you're talking about parking operator, would that be in lieu of Colliers, or would you still have Colliers doing whatever management activities they're doing now?
That is something that can be discussed and recommended. What was proposed is we're likely going to need a property manager for our tenants, but everything that is not tenant related, we would bring on a parking manager that reports directly to us, and they would manage everything related to parking, including engagement with customers, cleanliness, maintenance. If something needs to be replaced or fixed, they would take the lead on that.
And that's in lieu of JT Enterprises or whoever's.
It could be JT Enterprises, so
Yeah.
likely we'll have to, if the direction is to go procure a parking operator that reports directly to us, we'll have to go out to bid or do an RFP, but yeah. And if something with the facility, let's say HVAC breaks, either the parking operator is going to notify us, or the property manager for the tenants is going to notify us. And then we'll Dan would probably help us figure it out, Dan on our side, what improvements need to be made or fixes, or we would give the ability for the parking operator or the property manager to go address it.
There's a number of expenses that are anticipated or could occur. Would those come from parking revenues, or is it anticipated there's a shortfall that's coming out of redevelopment funds?
Thank you for the question again. There are some reserves. I think it's a little over $300,000, which may sound a lot, but if the elevator breaks, that gets done immediately, or some of the HVAC equipment up on the roof. It's likely that we'll have to. I do think that there's some new revenue opportunity with a new operator, as well as the rates. It could be in the form of maybe $100,000 more a year. But you're correct in that any big capital improvements may have to come from the agency, not from
So like
the
the
operation.
software, parking software, for example, that we'd have to find a
Correct.
budget within our
Correct.
redevelopment budget to cover that.
So with Ashley Attorney, Assistant City Manager for the record, so initial fund is the current reserve fund that Collier holds. Ultimately, though, it is an RDA owned asset and we are responsibility for the maintenance and management of that asset. So yes, if there's not enough in reserves, it will need to be paid for from the agency budget, which would come back before you because it's not budgeted right now. So you'd have to find it from somewhere else.
I would echo the comment that you gotta expedite CIP because you gotta know what you're doing, what you need to do before you hit with it. That would be important to me. A lot of information yet to be determined in terms of what, the analysis is the parking operator can make you money, lose you money, all of that. But I think if it's an underutilized asset, then it makes sense to study how to improve that.
Mike Van Houten for the records, even though there weren't a lot of public feedback included in it, I think it was like 13 or so responses to the survey. They weren't that great. And same with the outreach meetings that were done. And so I'd like to see either if we could get more public input or just replace the parking operator based on the feedbacks that we have. And that would be the JT.
JT Enterprises is the current, part of what is proposed in the analysis is, as Brian mentioned, going out for RFP for a new operator or an updated operator. JT Enterprises would be welcome to submit into that RFP as well.
Yeah.
What we see is, as we know, the RDA was dormant for nearly 2 decades. And so this has really been in a holding pattern. And so this is an opportunity for us to really re-engage as the property owner and ensure that we're getting.
Has Colliers mentioned any positives or negatives working with JT Enterprises at all? What is their experience with them?
It's their vendor, but I do think there's some communication challenges between those two.
Gotcha, okay.
There's room for improvement, is what we heard. We send mailers to, I don't know, several hundred people downtown.
We did send mailers to every property owner and business owner downtown. We also did an engagement session here in City Hall. I believe that got about 30 people, and it was business tenants, it was employees, some people from the county showed up. So we did hold a robust engagement session, but the survey did only get about 13 respondents.
And nobody was like, you guys are doing a fantastic job, just keep doing what you're doing? Or what was feedback, mixed or?
Does anybody show up and say that ever?
No. That's good. Good point.
Room for improvement.
Colin Robertson for the record. I guess one of the room areas for improvement is, are we paying a landscaper to take care of dead plants?
Colliers is yes. They're taking care of rocks.
It seems to me, Member Stitzer brought up, I think, a really important point about the analysis indicating what the cost increase needs to cover. Basically, we need to know what those long-term expenses are going to be, not just incrementally, raised to get to peer levels for the sake of it, but instead to know what is our long-term business strategy for that to be aligned with our peer cities' infrastructure, but also to assure that we can pay for whatever the lights that show you if that space is available or what have you. Yeah, those are, I guess I would feel comfortable making a motion to recommend that the agency board.
Do you want to finish your motion or we want to hear from Taylor?
Sorry,
Member Adams, if you have comment, go for it.
I do. Thank you. I didn't know if you all could see my hand up or not, since we're still sharing screens. So thank you for finding me. I want to thank Member Stitzer for his question about pricing. It sounds like we were getting to this in the motion, so I'm interested to see where this goes, and also for the additional context that ACM Attorney provided regarding the thought that that there might be the need for, that basically that it sounds like this is a gateway more than a destination as it relates to a policy standpoint. So I was just going to, sounds like we may have been going there. I was going to ask if we wanted to include something in any motion we made on this to telegraph the fact that we think that this is a first step that could that could have subsequent pricing steps that follow. For, you know, obviously we're not the ultimate policymaker here, but if,
Member Adams, we can't hear you on our end.
oh,
We are gonna work to sort out,
oh,
we can see you're unmuted, but we can't hear you in the room.
oh, well,
We all ask a question while we're figuring that out. Paul Klein. So it's kind of interesting to think about this and just thinking about our peer cities. I guess from a philosophical standpoint, that parking garage serves a purpose. Would it be in our interest so that it makes money, generates money for the RDA? Or is it perfectly fine for overall goal to just have it break even? Of course, we need to just, you know, have it be renewed and things like that. But has it ever made money? Has the purpose ever been to make money or just serve people in the community so that other business can make money?
Brian McCarl, revitalization manager for the record. When I look at most cities, they do, from a redevelopment perspective, a lot of agencies own multiple galleries. I think they do have an interest in revenue, but then they take those revenues and they invest those in other areas to improve the area. This one, the revenue was specifically, there were bonds taken out against this. And so there was a revenue model to make sure that it was making enough money to generate enough income to pay the bonds. So I'll just leave that there, that I do believe that some of the intent is to have this generating revenue so that you can spend additional funds on other improvements.
Other things.
Or improve the facility.
Above and beyond self-sustaining.
Above and beyond. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that answers my question.
You might need to log off and log back in.
I think
Sit down again.
the video wasn't working just yet, or just on Friday, so we got the video back. Speaker now.
And here I'll be your test case.
Darn Microsoft updates.
Can you hear me? You can't hear me.
I can hear you.
I could hear you as well.
Yeah.
The volume turned up on that speaker.
Can any of you hear us? Sounds like, well, I guess not. Oh, well,
I captured your comments in the minutes.
We want
that's
to.
perfect. Thank you. I mean, the big thing is just since we're not the policymakers, if we contemplate that additional action is required, I think it's always good if we telegraph that to the body. That was
Got
it.
Can you see it, please?
I'm going to send them a note that you and I can hear each other, but they can't.
Okay, what you were saying before they cut you off was that you want to include something that you think this is a first step that could have subsequent pricing, and then you got interrupted.
That's right,
First
yeah.
step that could have subsequent pricing considerations.
Yeah,
Okay.
because they're saying that they don't think it's enough.
Okay, got it. Now I can't hear them either.
Me either. I'll add that. Now we can't hear you.
All right, well, let's,
Oh, there they
You
are.
want to move on to your motion?
yeah, let's
There
move
they
on.
are.
Go for it, Vice Chair.
I was, Colin Robertson for the record. I was thinking I would make the motion that we recommend to the advisory board to accept the parking gallery report and then to recommend essentially additional analysis of needs for capital improvements and use, both existing and prospective future use, so that we can see that it not only covers its costs, but might help continue reinvestment in the redevelopment area.
Anything with the seeking the operator? Or not this time?
So moved.
Danielle Laveria, second.
Okay, yes, have the motion clarity?
Yep.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Does everyone feel good about that? Reassess. Evaluate the operator agreement. Find, capital improvement needs, and then come back.
Member Harris, for the record, it sounds like that the operator needs to be addressed regardless of what the moving forward plan is. So would be top priority. And my concern is, let's get an operator in there that's actually working, even if the technology's not there quite yet.
Yeah, Mike, for the record, I'd like to see that somehow included in the motion too.
Okay,
RFP for.
I can clarify if you'd like what I believe
let's
the
try.
message is. So we have a motion that you're recommending that the RDA accept the report, identify additional CIP needs, and then move forward with an RFP for a new parking operator.
Yes.
that's
And
right.
my comment was just find ways to make sure that this asset is performing to the most efficient, profitable manner that it can. I mean, it's underutilized now, so whatever recommendations. Evaluate all options to improve the operations of the parking garage.
Right.
Brian McCardle again, just for clarity, would you propose delaying the rate increase until that CIP plan comes back?
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so.
I would not either. I think the incremental $20 a month for monthly rentals is totally within reason with current escalation and inflation. And so I wouldn't postpone that small incremental adjustment. I would postpone trying to jump up to where our peers currently are.
So you're talking about the $3 to the $4 one?
No, the 55 to the 75.
Yeah, I agree.
It was proposed to keep it at $3.
The
an
new
hour.
operator might have a different.
So one, if I could try to help, one of the things that we would likely see through this new parking operator, as we mentioned, they would be the ones that would consolidate all of the permits to do a full evaluation of security needs, what's happening inside the building, while we're also in tandem working on a CIP need. I would recommend that they are the ones who should be implementing that increase, because that's something that if they're going to move to a digital system, they'll be able to have a better analysis of what's happening. So I think you're not delaying that, you are just recommending that it go in tandem with this new operator. And then as those CIP needs come back, you may see a need for an additional increase.
Yeah.
Because presumably, Colin Robinson for the record, presumably they would also be contributing ideas that are central to the CIP.
Right.
Correct. The CIP project will be done in tandem with the operator, would be what we would propose as staff. So we'll get the structural analysis, identify elevators have X amount of useful life. Here's what we know needs to be done for maintenance. And then the parking operator would also come in and say, on top of the LED lights, the fancy flashing lights, we also think that you need reflective mirrors on floors 3 and 5 because of birds. That's made up. But that would be something that we would work in tandem with them to ensure that we're bringing you a consolidated plan back.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
I guess I just was curious, is the top floor open or covered?
Open.
It's a little bit. I've been here.
Well, that's part of the issue, right, is that there's a bunch of underutilized spaces.
Yeah.
If you're not on the second floor, people leave.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the recommendation is on the record. Okay, so let's move into B4, presentation, discussion, recommendation to the redevelopment agency board on the potential disposition, lease, and other action in response to unsolicited letter of interest received by Buckster LLC. This is a possible action item. I'll pass it over to staff to start it off.
Do you want to receive public comment? Would you like public comment before the presentation and then? Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, the order of operations is presentation,
Presentation, public comment. Yeah.
Okay. And I'll mention anyone in the audience that would like to give public comment, please fill out a form and submit it.
Thank you.
Brian McCardle, Revitalization Manager for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the item before you is in May, both the city and the redevelopment agency received a letter of intent to lease and potentially purchase both the city of Reno parcel, which is located at City Plaza, as well as the redevelopment agency lot that is adjacent just to the east. The letter of intent is in the packet. Staff has not done any sort of analysis or review of what would be needed to develop or do any sort of improvements on the site, nor have we explored the limits of or the process of how to lease and sell not only the city-owned portion, but the RDA site. Since that other site is owned by the redevelopment agency, it is not considered either open space, zoned open space, or considered a city plaza. It is just a parcel that is owned by the RDA. The process could be different from the city side to the RDA side. In the past, I would say probably around 2008, when the entire plaza was being redesigned, the redevelopment agency was entertaining RFPs to go out and find a public-private partnership for a retail developer on the redevelopment agency site. I believe they may have received a couple RFPs, but then they just went into the Great Recession, and that has not been revisited since. The LOI proposes a 5-year ground lease for $1 with the option to do 3 5-year renewals. With the potential to possibly purchase the property, but that would require an appraisal of the site. So they're not proposing to buy it for $1. The lease would be $1. Any future purchase discussions would, negotiations would be contingent on the lease or the appraisal. So there are 4 options that you could recommend to the agency. And right now we're kind of just talking about the redevelopment owned site, but this is potential for you to give some direction on the entire proposal. Option 1, and this is per the city policy on how we dispose of properties. The first one is to not entertain the letter in general. So that would be a thank you, but no thank you. The second option is to request either the applicant or staff do further due diligence to go out and see what process would be, what elements need to be addressed, possibly have the applicant do a little bit more due diligence on the site. The third option would be to recommend that the agency board and possibly the city staff go straight into exclusive negotiations on what a lease and possible sale would look like. And then the fourth option is to put the opportunity out for a broader RFP. And that is consistent with the city's policy as well as Nevada revised statutes on how properties are sold. So I'll state again that staff hasn't really done much on this. We received this letter now, a couple of weeks ago, and we're really seeking input from the city council and the agency board on how they would like to address this. And so your recommendation to them is what is being sought at the moment. So on that there. We do have, this is the site map, and then the next exhibit would be the proposed site plan.
Just a quick point of clarification. So you're saying one parcel is City of Reno property and another parcel is RDA property?
Correct.
If you go back to the last map, what's the divider lines?
Yep. So you can actually see the parcel line. There's a faint white line here.
So that is RDA.
Yep. It is pretty much the asphalted area, and then it connects to this curve and goes all the way around. That is the redevelopment area on site. The rest is City Plaza. I'll mention that they are not proposing the entire parcel. They're proposing leasing a portion of that parcel.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you do have the applicant present, and I believe he has 10 minutes for a presentation if you would like to entertain that, and then you do have public comment in the audience.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
And as a note, just for the record, member Stitzer is recusing himself, I believe, from this item and will not be voting.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Kurt Stitzer for the record. I was born and raised here in Reno, fourth generation Northern Nevada kid. As many of you may know, I'm also a developer and general contractor who's invested a lot of my own money, time and energy into the betterment of our community. A little over 10 years ago, we proceeded forward with a proposal to build the Eddy at great risk and personal expense to myself. And it's proven to be a wonderful addition to the downtown community and the business community. In addition to running a for-profit business, as many of you may know, we consider it a community space where we open up our venue free of charge for use to any nonprofits doing fundraisers. We put on free community events and have been for over a decade doing free fitness classes every Sunday morning. We try our best to both operate as a business, but stewards of the community, and nothing about that programming will change with this proposal. The background and impetus of this proposal is 100% driven by the impending deconstruction and rebuilding of the Sierra Street Bridge. That is slated to start in April next year, 2027. The Eddy being a seasonal business because nobody comes out and buys beers in the middle of winter to hang out outside. So we're forced to only operate in about 9 out of 12 months, which really limits our ability to generate revenue and concentrates the revenue generation into a shorter time period. So it's absolutely critical that we're able to perform at our highest and best during those months, 9 months of operation, typically April through December, April through November. So with the bridge potentially lasting through the end of 2028, but for sure into spring, summer of 2028, we're looking at, the potential of not making enough money to sustain as a business and going out of business. I will cite hardships from other businesses that have really struggled when the Virginia Street Bridge was reconstructed, and businesses that are currently struggling and or have gone completely out of business as a result of the Arlington Bridge. Those of you that are on this board saw the presentation and some of the comments that I made to RTC as it relates to the impacts of this business and the unavailability of funds to offset those impacts to the businesses affected by these bridge reconstruction projects in our meeting in April. So there's some background information there. From a site planning and presentation perspective, if you go to the other presentation, there is an updated map which I handed to you, members of the board here today, and will be added to the record. But there are a couple of revisions that we've made. As we've learned more and done some preliminary due diligence, I was made aware that the Tahoe Pyramid Bike Path actually runs through this site. And so right in front of Believe Plaza, where that blue bar container and the red pizza container are, have been pulled out away from that. And the fencing will be out away from that to preserve that bike path. Also, all of the river access with the new development and improvements that were done with the construction of the Virginia Street Bridge will be maintained to the public. It is outside the confines of our proposed use of the site. So we were really thoughtful and will remain intentional about how we design and lay out this site such that the community benefits of the river access and that bike path are preserved because we believe in that. And I'm a member of this community and a resident here, and I use those benefits as well. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that. That is a slight revision to the plan. We talked about the distinction between the RDA site and the city site. We are proposing not to take the section of landscaping at the corner to keep that within the Parks Department, as that is a community benefit and was developed by the parks and should remain under their purview. The actual site itself, as any of you know who have been to the Eddy, is an open door, right? We're not charging a cover charge even when we're doing live music events and things like that. Come in, play the backyard games, hang out, buy something or don't. It's really meant to be a gathering space and a place where people can congregate and communicate and associate with each other, right? The RDA site, the way that I've drawn this up is with the intention to build a stage right on the property line, that when we're doing a DJ on a random Saturday, that they would be set up facing in towards the actual Eddy, and providing entertainment towards that space. For special events where this plaza has been traditionally used in the past, such as Western Lights or different things like that, or where there may be a collaboration between the RDA or city or whatever, the facing out towards the east, the pickleball, we would just pull the nets out of there and face the music that way, so that still can be used for a public space for entertainment, and things of that nature. The intent with the pickleball courts is, again, a public benefit. It would be a fenced off area, so it's secured overnight, but that would be something that we would open up every morning and close down every evening. We'd be responsible for the costs to build those improvements and to maintain those improvements, but that is not a monetized feature of this business. That is meant to be, again, a community asset that can be used by Renoites and for the benefit of people that live and recreate in downtown. So I was trying to be very thoughtful about this proposal to find a balance between what this site currently is and how it's utilized, and what it could be with private investment in improving the grounds and the facility itself. From the perspective of an operational standpoint, this is going to be at significant costs. I mean, multiples of millions of dollars to rebuild this thing. So this is something that I intend to do as a permanent relocation. I've seen some public comment that this might be a potential short-term relocation. This is meant to be a permanent relocation that activates this property downtown and allows us to, after so many years of operations, to improve on the Eddy, its current facilities, and how we interact with our community and how we can provide even more benefit to it. So just a couple of notes I wanted to touch on and address there as that site plan was presented. From the RDA's perspective, whether we just lease it or buy it or however we do that, we'd be more than happy to collaborate and work with the RDA on uses of that and potential improvements. I mean, there's a proposed future new bathroom facility and things like that would be necessary and used in larger produced music events or theater events or things like that. We just haven't quite worked out. So again, it was, how does this design work the best, and then how's it going to be built out is still to be determined. I'd like to address a couple of the public comments, and then obviously there's people here in the room, but some of the concerns that I've heard is free speech gathering space. As we all know, when there are protests or community organization, that the plaza is used for that. There is a lot of available free space. I would cite the Locomotion Plaza that was developed and improved as a potential alternate site for something like that. There is the old bus stop just right down there that could also be used. It's city owned. I don't know, courthouse lot might not be the best thing to propose for something like that, but there are plenty of downtown organizing and free speech zones that could be used as an alternative. The distribution of aid by the Family Soup. What's that group called?
You got it, Family Soup.
Family Soup. There's again similar alternate locations that could be used that are no further than a block or two away from this current site. Access to the bike and river trails we talked about. from a community event perspective, I mean, that is a large, well-located, piece of property that has really extremely low use rates if you actually look at it. I have submitted public request for information on actual use rates and also calls for service from fire and police to that property so that we can have a more intelligent conversation about what is really being displaced. Additionally, there is ongoing challenges with that property. I know that the ice rink that was originally developed there is no longer functional, which is a loss to the community. It was attempted to be repurposed as a roller skating rink last summer, I believe that was. To my knowledge, the downtown, it's called the Neomas Group.
Reno Partnership.
The Downtown Reno Partnership does not have intentions of redoing that. So, you know, there's things like this where people have gotten to experience this property that I don't know that those experiences will come back again, right? So how do we take this property and use it to its, you know, highest and best benefit? And so there's that. And again, the downtown events, Western Lights. I mean, the Eddy was one of the venues that was part of Western Lights last year. We will continue to participate in events such as that, whether it's just in the RDA lot or a overtake of the entire venue, because we support that kind of stuff, and it's just a lot of fun to be involved in. Additionally, I will say from the option to purchase, that's something that I'm not stuck on. If we were to proceed forward with a lease without the option to purchase, I'm still remain interested in this project. But as many may not know, the new FEMA flood maps that have been published and that are to be soon adopted render that site pretty undevelopable. I mean, it would take extreme costs to get that thing completely out of the floodplain with additional flood walls and things like that. So, you know, if and when the Eddy runs its course in 10, 15, 20 years and we end up resolving the business anyways and return that back, the city's going to be sitting with a plaza again that is still a severe monetary challenge to be able to develop a permanent building there. You know, I envision a mixed use building or something similar. So that's just something that, you know, we're all still trying to get our arms wrapped around. These FEMA maps have not yet been adopted, but is a real challenge that developers have to be aware of as we move forward. Another thing that, you know, I think that this board in our budget approved financing for improvements to the plaza that was not adopted and implemented. So it's just, it just remains, you know, underdeveloped, underutilized, and with this program, I think that it will be an improvement to the facility. And I think that's about it. I'm happy to address any questions or answers here. As Ashley mentioned, I am recusing myself from the vote, but will remain to respond to any issues.
Let's go questions from initial questions. We'll do 2 rounds of questions. So if you have any initial questions for staff or the applicant, we'll ask those. Then we'll go public comment, and then we'll come back for another round of questions. How's that sound? Yeah. So does anybody here on the board have any initial on the project itself for clarity?
I have a couple. And so Kurt, you know, just thinking about where this is located, I know, you know, you're concerned about the affect to the property with the Sierra Street Bridge. A couple of years from now, it's going to be the Center Street Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you feel like you have that same handicap? You know, you're looking at a 5-year initial option on this, which will fall right into when Center Street gets underway.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a concern. You know, Center Street is further down the road. I'm responding to an immediate threat
Right.
to business.
Right.
I would, however, say that Sierra Street being a one-way, it poses a lot more issues when when we're flanked now with Virginia Street being a two-way bridge. And people get used to that traffic pattern of accessing the Eddy through Virginia Street rather than up Sierra Street. Also, if as you guys have seen, the road closures for the reconstruction of Sierra Street extend all the way to Second Street, essentially. I mean, there is some one-way traffic, and it'll be changed as the project develops. But you know, just the extent of the closures to Sierra Street that are impacting the business are grave concern to us, quite honestly.
My other question is, you know, the support for the ice rink is still there under the concrete.
Understood.
And so what does that do? I mean, you've got tubes and, you know, water supply and everything underneath there. What does that do for the propulsion of creating this?
Like, is it gonna get in your way?
Well, so yeah, I mean, this is all part of the due diligence that will need to happen, right? I mean, the steps in the process for this, from my perspective, is that, you know, we see if there's interest in our proposal first and foremost. And if so, I would then begin engaging consultants to do, you know, flood studies, studies on the utility access to the facility, understanding the condition of that, and if, you know, there's glycol or freon or something like that that needs to be abated and removed from that system before we were to, you know, disrupt any of the piping and things like that. But it's my understanding that the damage that did happen to that ice rink system would pretty much require a full tear up and redo to repair and put back into operation. And it's my understanding that there's neither the budget nor the appetite to incur that expense. So that's, you know, that's the information that I've gleaned. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm prepared to navigate it and deal with it through the construction and development of this facility. But a lot of that stuff, you know, maybe from a disqualifier as we enter into negotiations around a lease and the developer's requirements and the potential costs of those. So that's all stuff that, you know, I will figure out in due time as things proceed forward, if they do.
I couldn't help for, oh, go ahead.
No, Greg, go ahead.
What kind of fencing are you proposing around this site? Because last year when they did do the roller rink, no offense to Downtown Reno Partnership, it was not that great looking to see it fenced off all summer with the chain link fence. And I know there was a lot of public outrage about that, and maybe that's possibly why they're not doing that this year.
It would not be chain link fence. So what I would propose is similar to the fencing that we have around the Eddy with the vertical decorative iron with the vertical slats. More challenging to climb, but, you know, still aesthetically pleasing. And, you know, let's be honest, the Eddy, you can jump the fence and get into there pretty simply. Not that I'm advocating for people to do that, but, you know, it's more about just having some level of security around it. And also for us operationally, when we do transition from all ages to 21 and up only, to be able to, you know, maintain who's able to get in while we're operating, not solely just for when you're closed and for.
I'm guessing you did the full kind of due diligence on the design. There's no possibility of maybe shrinking it by half, so at least some of the plaza would be available. Because that's my only other concern is it is like the primary spot in Reno where they have large scale rallies, and like the Local Motion Plaza and other places are definitely not going to hold 10,000 people.
And so that's the only other concern I have is it really takes up the entire public space. If there's any way to, cut that in half or shrink it to the RDA portion of the lot primarily, or have a portion of it not be fenced, maybe the portions that would have pose the least security risk or something. It's just that the concept of fencing off the entire public plaza is a little tough for me.
So I can do a square foot analysis. I mean, our facility as it's currently designed, often reaches capacity. And it's not much smaller than the city portion of this parcel that I'm proposing to take over. So I mean, from the perspective of, is there a way to maintain a reasonable amount of the plaza for public gathering? I just don't see it as viable to still be able to operate our business the way that it is. I mean, that's not much more spread out than our current facility.
Yeah,
as currently laid out.
Carrie Harris, for the record. Kurt, if this were to move forward, what do you envision happening to the existing Eddy site currently?
So the existing Eddy site is a privately owned parcel, and my lease does expire at the end of this year. So it would then be up to the owner of the parcel to determine what he wants to do with it. Per my lease, it has to be returned back to just a dirt lot, pre-existing conditions. That would not be my intent to just scrape it. There is a possibility where the owner may develop a building there. That was his original plan of acquiring the site. And so he may revisit that, or may go to another user operator, or, he may work, I'm theoretical stuff that I haven't even discussed, but like Wild River Grill does live music all summer long on the patio. They may take the opportunity to take over that site and expand their operations for their live music programming and outdoor dining. I don't know, but it is a privately owned parcel that I honestly don't have control over.
And if this were to move forward, would you be purchasing some leasing options from the parking gallery? I'm just teasing.
In the LOI, the proposal was that we would do with the Reno's parking garage right here, and doing a validation system and creating parking revenue for this parking garage that's attached to City Hall.
You mentioned you operate about 9 months a year right now. What would the operations be on this site, and would it be closed 3 months during the winter, or can you?
Yeah, probably pretty similar. This past winter for the first time ever. And honestly, it was more in response to the likelihood of having to close and relocate and just trying to generate revenue to help offset some of those costs. We operated, I would say 5-6 weekends during the winter when it was 60 degrees in January. And so, we do preserve a couple of the containers. We don't winterize them so that if we do have the opportunity, we can activate the facility. But yeah, I mean, the operations would not be much different from what we currently do on the Eddy component. Now, the RDA lot, pickleball courts, the potential use of the stage, things like that would remain open to the public and to use by promoters who wanted to do their own events and things like that.
Okay, let's go to public comment. We'll go through all the public comment, and then after that, we'll give the applicant and staff to answer any questions that may be posed during public comment, and then another final round for board members. So let's go into public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian McCall, Revitalization Manager. So public comment, we have 4 public comments sheets initiated. Whoever is public commenting, you can address the advisory board from the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes. The first one is Brian Mandis. Okay. Next is Jess Cassia. Oh, I'm sorry. I should actually see.
You don't have to, but if you'd like to, we'd like to give you the opportunity.
I have worked service industry for a very long time. I have chosen not to have children because of the expense of inflation that we speak of in this meeting. I also have nieces, nephews in this community. I think it is very important to have public spaces that are not for profit. It's easy to feel, let's say in the winter, when there are weekends where you would like to enjoy the weather, I don't want to have to go on a for public, Instagram or site to see if that weekend is a weekend they decided to open. Want to be able to explore and be in the community and have my nieces and nephews in the community, knowing that space is open, right? I just think that I obviously didn't prepare because I wanted to, but no, but I just really think it's takes the humanity out of this community. This community is to have public places, to have places for skaters to go, to have places for people to, have conversation without feeling a DJ behind them or feeling the pressure to buy a cocktail or what have you. I just think that having an open space is what this community has shined with, and I think it should continue to shine with. That is a beautiful spot on the river. That is a spot that I know a lot of people come to, that's the meeting spot for, hey, where do you want to meet? Let's go to Blues Plaza, right? Like it is a community place, and I think that for-profit should be, it has its place in the community, and I believe that it does, and it already does, right? And I just think having an open space is, I think taking that away would be regressing in what our citizens of the city would want. The more we build it up, the less we're going to be able to have. Nobody ever took a building down and put a new park, right? Like if that park is taken away, it is most likely not going to be because of FEMA maps brought back as what it is, right? I don't know what I do now. Do you have any questions for me?
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jess. So as we move forward, if you can state your name for our note ticker in the record before you start speaking, we have your name, but just moving forward.
Next, Mr. Chair, is Stephen Zitkin.
Stephen Zitkin for the record. My opinion of this proposal is that we should go ahead with the thanks but no thanks as discussed when the proposal first came up. There are a good number of other businesses who have been negatively impacted by the construction of the Virginia Bridge or the construction of the Arlington Street Bridge. But I noticed that none of them were liquid enough to even come with the proposal of leasing the Believe Plaza. So while I don't know everything about the financials of the Eddy, for you to come with this proposal suggests that the difference between your business and theirs is probably like a couple zeros. So there's kind of a having our cake and eating it too problem here, right? On the one hand, you clearly just want to, make the expansion that you feel your business has arrived at the time for. And on the other hand, you want to claim to be, the downtrodden business owner who is going to be negatively affected by the Sierra Street construction. But it can only be one of those things. You are either doing well enough in your business that you can make this huge expansion because it is substantially larger than the current Eddy campus and the facilities it provides, right? We saw those two pickleball courts, which are a large object that the current Eddy does not currently have. And I would also like to point out those pickleball courts are in the part of the Believe Plaza that is currently reserved for fire access. So I want to bring up the concern of compliance with fire code with the proposal as it stands. I'm concerned that fire trucks will not be able to access the plaza with the exact proposal we were just shown. I think if we go ahead with this thanks but no thanks, it really does seem like the Eddy is going to be fine. The Arlington Street Bridge construction that's going on now, also affects the West Street pedestrian bridge and the pedestrian route through Wingfield Park. So the foot traffic that these businesses affected now are the reduction in foot traffic they're seeing is a lot more substantial than the Eddy will see, especially considering that it's easily accessible from Virginia Street anyway. So I really don't buy the argument that this Sierra Street construction is going to affect the Eddy specifically so negatively that out of sympathy for their plight, we must lease this land. And I don't know your name, but I really like what you had to say. I really do think it can be much smaller if we do go ahead with this. At the very least, there's a pickleball court concern that I brought up, and it really can be smaller. Like if I don't get what I want, which is for this space to remain as it is, we can definitely go ahead with the version of this proposal that has a much smaller footprint. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment in the room? And we'll get to you, Nathaniel Phillips, in a minute here.
Next up is Christian Brown.
Christian, please.
Morning, guys. Yeah, so it'll be my first regional planning meeting I've attended, so nice to meet you all, and thanks for what you do. But yeah, I'm also kind of in that same boat of the thanks or no thanks for this. I kind of don't like the idea of taking a public space and making it private. I do believe that the Believe Plaza is already a very good space for people to gather and do all these community projects that are going on, or for people to have their free speech rallies or whatever you would like to call it. But yeah, I think that everyone who's already spoken has brought up some really great points too. So I kind of just ran up here just to check out what you guys were talking about today. So I think it is very important to keep our public spaces public for the future. And that particular location is like, the fact that it's right in front of City Plaza or City Counter here really does make it a really good gathering place for just everybody. I've seen a lot of really great things happen out there, and I don't want to see that get privatized. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't have too much to say, but I do believe, let's keep it a public space. I would love that. Take care, guys.
Thank you. You have
She spoke in general. If you'd like to allow it on this item, you can allow it.
I already spoke earlier. I was
can come up on this specific item and do another public
I have
comment.
a question for her, but
You all can mention it, and then when we go back to that portion, information portion, you might be able to address it.
I just had a question for Kurt. Brianna
Please
McCain.
state your name.
Yeah, Brianna McCain. I spoke at the beginning of the meeting. I was primarily wondering if you've investigated any other parcels in the area. And if it doesn't get approved, do you have the option to, or are you planning to stay at the current Eddy location, or will you just have to vacate at the end of the release?
Let's finish public comment and then you can, yes. Noted.
Again, it was a question.
Thanks. Okay, Mr. Phillips, do we have audio to where we can hear? Mute.
Nathaniel, can you go ahead and unmute yourself? I'll have to unmute so we can test.
Nathaniel, we're calling on you for public comment. If you could unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Next up, we have Adrian Rodriguez.
Good afternoon. I am here to declare my absolute opposition to the relocating of the Eddy. I don't understand why you can't continue to function with everything that everybody said. Having done research that I haven't done myself, I think that many great points have been made as far as the foot traffic, the financial ability to relocate probably means that during the period of time in which the construction that is, in fear of affecting your business, I'm sure that you'll be able to stay afloat if you decide to remain on the current plot of land that you are functioning on. The Believe Plaza is the only free speech plaza that we have, at least in this area. It is very appalling to me to think that you are going to make the community better by expanding onto our only free speech plaza. Like on your website, it says that you're very community, like your priorities, the community, which like I don't understand what you mean by that. This feels like the complete opposite of going into also one of the only spaces that homeless people can attempt to even sit for like more than 30 seconds, as the law like has currently changed to, without being harassed and use the bathroom legally. Is that going to change? Okay. Regardless, I would just like to echo pretty much everything that everybody has said in their comments prior to mine. I am not for this, and I don't think the community needs it at all.
Thank you for your comments.
And then, Mr. Chair, you have Nathaniel Phillips in person. You get to state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Nathaniel Phillips. I've lived in downtown Reno and in the University District as well as Midtown. And I'm originally from Las Vegas. I didn't just show up today. I've given comments before as a community organizer. So yeah, I would mostly echo the comments that I've heard so far, the concerns about this proposal. But I guess I'll mostly speak to how important it is that we preserve our public spaces. And it's going to be hard to separate the role of the proprietor of the Eddy from the commissioner and official on this body. So no offense to the Eddy, I've been a couple times. Not my jam. My friend really likes it there. I do like that it's close to the river, but I also like that you can go sit in the Believe Plaza and not have to buy anything. You can even smoke a doobie by the water and give thanks to the water for free. But I think the most preposterous part of the proposal, and again, it's not personal, but is kind of the misleading way that it's been introduced. Public space is valuable on its own and in its own right. It doesn't have to be commodified or developed private ownership. Certainly not on the river. And I think that's important to state. They're putting cameras on the river. People are already feel surveillance when they go down to the river. Keep the plaza open. The proprietor / commissioner, or I forget, I don't know your exact title, said that, there's already a low use value. He's done the research, submitted the requests for data. It has incredible use value. Soup has told you. Several people like Stephen here and Comrade have told you how important it is to be able to serve folks in our community, but also for folks who are so neglected by this community and by the officials that they have nowhere else to seek shelter except on the river. So in my last 45 seconds, although the recusal from the vote today on your own proposal goes a little ways in clearing up the semblance of impropriety of the Reno Development Agency, I think it's audacious that any proprietor would even do this. And I think it says a little about the misgivings of municipal governance. But I really hope you heed the comments of folks who came down from a very important meeting downstairs to share their concerns with you today. So please reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comment?
You don't have any more public comment? There were, I believe, written public comment that were shared with the members as well.
Got it. Okay, let's get back into any questions from the board. I have one, just in terms of just historical knowledge is so. Sorry, I just wanting to be reminded, how did the Mapes, which is a privately owned massive casino, how did that property get into the hands of city government?
Trip down memory lane. This is big. Yeah, Brian McCarter, revitalization manager. So in the late 90s, part of the bonds that were taken out for the parking gallery, the redevelopment agency assembled multiple parcels along the river. They purchased pretty much five city blocks. Part of that was this entire lot, which included the Mapes. They did go out for RFP to rehab the Mapes and the Riverside Casino at the same time. It was determined, and anyone can chime in and fill in the gaps, but.
So the Mapes property was, when it was dissolved, it was deeded back to the city? Like how did that?
At some point it was
purchased.
Yeah, it was purchased by the RDA. The RDA led the RFP to get a adaptive reuse for both Riverside Casino and the Mapes. Riverside was found it could be adaptively reused. They went through three developers on the Mapes, and it was found that the cost to fix it and remove all the asbestos was not financially feasible. So the Mapes was demoed, and then at one point the ice rink was determined to go on that site with a canopy structure, and at some point the RDA deeded it over to the city, but kept the lot to the east. And as I mentioned previously, it was determined at that time that they would go out for some commercial use on that RDA site to benefit the plaza use. And then we had the Great Recession; those conversations ceased.
Interesting. Okay.
I've been out for the record. How come the RDA hasn't gone back out to do an RFP for the section that they own that would be, good for a permanent restaurant or anything like that?
We've been busy, Mike.
I know.
It was something that could be considered part of, and I'll mention that 2 studies have been done in that time. Both the Virginia Street placemaking study that did recommend some uses and changes to Believe Plaza. Some of them included shipping containers and retail on that site. The Virginia Street, I always confuse them. Shrike River Vision Plan did recommend a complete redesign of Believe Plaza with the potential commercial use on the RDA site. So we have 2 plans that both say redesign Believe Plaza, add more amenities, add more, suggested some commercial uses. And that is something that was it was on the list of things to eventually address.
I was just curious,
but
it's such a prime parcel, and
you may know a lot as well. You sort of are wealth of knowledge.
I remember that the parcel was originally going to be RFP'd out for a building to go there, and then that ended up failing, and then they reverted to the plaza after that. But the original vision was going to be dense residential or dense building of some kind. After
okay,
famous face.
Yeah.
Yes, that's interesting. So it has been meant for something to go there, at least in that space. Mm-hmm. It just not by sure.
Colin Robertson for the record. I have a couple of thoughts that I'd like to get on the record. Basically, that Believe Plaza is as a plaza. It has been there's a discrepancy between how the RDA acquired the property and how the city has designated it for some time now. And in chapter 823 of the Reno Municipal Code, that's the chapter that deals with parks and plazas. And for all intents and purposes, based on the practice and the heritage of its use as a plaza, it is considered by the city from a government standpoint, a park. And one of the things that I'm really challenged by, I love the Eddy. I think the Eddy has been an amazing asset to the site where it has been for the last 10+ years. It's been a boon in very nice weather for people to have something to do along that section of the river. That's been tremendous. But I'm also challenged by the fact that in the 101 largest metropolitan areas in the United States, Reno ranks 82 of those 101 in terms of our park score. And that compares significantly poorly to a city that we oftentimes compare ourselves to, Boise, Idaho, which is the 15th ranked city in the country for park scores. So my issue with this has more to do with use and the access to public space and public lands than it does with the concept itself. I think this concept is an amazing opportunity to revitalize another area. But what that area needs to be, and there may be other parcels that even the RDA would own and manage and be potentially able to dispose of, which I hate that phrase, dispose of land. But from where I sit as a public space and as a de facto park in the city of Reno, which is already short on park space per resident, I'm not going to be able to support that.
I have a couple questions. How did the city, did they pay the RDA for that space?
I am unsure, so I will preface that staff has not done a lot of digging and due diligence for this until we get some direction. So at this moment, we're just presenting the letter, which is what we do on other city properties. The policy is anytime we get an unsolicited proposal, we bring it forward. But I'm not sure. I've taken some notes to look at the deeds from going from the Bates to the RDA to the city.
And Wingfield city-owned park, or is that, it's a city-owned park? Yeah.
The redevelopment agency owns this lot and the parking gallery.
The city owns Wingfield.
Correct.
And that's it.
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
I mean, from my perspective, I like the concept of activating this site. And lived here for 55 years. I mean, it was always the Bates. It was always in my mind. This was privately owned. It was a business, and from my perspective, it's only an open space by default. And timing of the Mapes coming down in the Great Recession, something else probably would be there right now, but for that occurring, and it's been kept open. In my opinion, just to retain flexibility till the city can figure out what that best use is. I don't know that this is the best permanent use. I would have concerns with an option to purchase it, but I think a short-term lease makes sense. Just to activate the site and see if it can support some type of business activity there. Public still can use it. It's a business, but it's still available for folks to enjoy. I think that site's got problems with the FEMA mapping. Even without the new FEMA map, it's probably got some issues, but it's worth exploring that. I personally think I wouldn't limit it to the area you've shown. I think I would take the whole site. So I think you're going to have some problems with trying to just manage access and control if you take part of the site. So I would suggest looking at the whole site as part of this. The city, usually have some deal where they still maintain the landscaping. And then my last comment is I think $1 a meter is too low. I think there's got to be some type of fair compensation for this if you're going to rent it out for use. And I won't touch into whatever your legal recommendations would be for going out to make public lands available for lease, but the city does it all the time. I don't have any concerns with that, but I do think it would be nice to see a little more activation on that site.
Mike Van Houten for the record. I also just add, kind of based on the past history of how the RDA board and or the city councils handled stuff like this is, I remember when Baxter Development came forward, they had a letter of interest, or was it for the CAC site, the Assistance Center site, and the city basically, the council, I can't remember if it was the council and the RDA in session at the time, but they basically turned them down and said, well, let's go ahead and do an RFP process for this site instead. And I think there was one other incident or case of that as well. So I, just for the logistics and look and feel, I think I would have an issue of saying, let's go into exclusive negotiating with someone that also is on our board. It's just not a good public, not a good look. So I would be open to doing an RFP, but I still, even with the RFP, have an issue with it taking up so much of the plaza or all of it and just not having it. Because even though it might have some historic precedence as like a privately owned lot, I think since then the public has gotten used to what it is being currently used as now. And there is going to be so much public pushback if you just completely remove that as I think a public gathering space at this point, because the public seems to tie that directly to what they got as payback, for the Mapes being demolished, which there was a lot of pushback in this community over. And so, okay, they're like, well, the Mapes was demolished, but we got this public space at least out of it. And if you take that away too, that's the part for me that's a little bit tough to move forward on. But I don't want to say I guarantee, because I don't want to speak for the RDA board, but they would probably say, well, let's do an RFP just to make sure no one else is interested in this, even if it's gone years with no bites for developing on it.
If I could add, I'm glad you mentioned that. I agree. I don't think option 3 is an option that's appropriate. I was thinking more of option 2, but almost more to the RDA board, because there's obviously the city council's impacted as well. There's a lot of political implications with this. Is just recommend that, do some additional due diligence to see whether or not they've got an interest. There's a lot of facts they got to develop first before you can figure out whether it's feasible. And then there's the political decision of, do you even do this? Yeah. But to me, option 2 would be the better recommendation for me personally.
I'd be open to option 2, more due diligence.
Okay, let's go to Member Adams online. We'll go back to the applicant to answer any questions potentially from the public, and then give us any last minute information. Then we'll move into where we want to go on action steps. So let's go to you, Member Adams online.
Thank you, Taylor Adams, for the record. This is as much a mic check as anything. Can you guys hear me this time?
We still can't hear.
Yes, no? No? Can you hear me?
Member Adams, I'm trying you on my cell phone right now.
Answer your phone and we'll put you on speaker.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I want to first commend, just hang on a second. I'm going to turn my phone all the way to, there we go. I was getting a little echo here. So, all right. I was asked to make a comment, if nothing else, just to give a sound check. Clearly the IT is still not working. That said, I generally agree with what Member Panya said in both of his comments, and most importantly, I mean, this for us comes down land use recommendation. I don't want to make it about a single applicant. I think the question is there a higher and better use for this property? And I think there probably is. I think we should always be in a position to have. I mean, part of our charge. Cities 2 RDAs. And so in this case, I would broadly support a conversation about a higher and better use of the property that's consistent with the reason it was it originally sort of the original intent of our acquisition. And I also do generally support anything that we can do to support our businesses that are going to be affected. Make that call. That's it.
Thank you, Member Adams. Okay, Member Spitzer, do you want to have any closing comments?
Sure.
Or address any public comment?
You have to. So to respond to Brianna's question, have I explored other sites and would the Eddy remain? Yeah, I looked long and hard for sites 10 years ago when we originally built the Eddy.
And, you know, as somebody who's an active developer and constantly looking at real estate, whether it be for other development projects or for, you know, the potential of relocating to Eddy, I don't believe that there is a viable site. There was a public comment about a site just down the street over here that was submitted online, privately owned, slated for townhome development. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff out there that people may not know what's coming or what current owners have slated and planned for things that make a lot of other options just completely unviable. So, you know, unfortunately, that is really the challenge that we have to deal with. As to whether I'm going to remain at that site, that's something that I've been thinking long and hard at. You know, I do have the option to renew my lease, but I'm not really inclined to sign up for another 5-year commitment of a 5-year or 5% per year escalating lease when my revenue is anticipated to be driven down meaningfully. It just, the math does not compute. I also do own property that I recently purchased down off Mount Rose Highway from Panatone, right across from the South Meadows Mall, that I might consider relocating the Eddy to. That has been something that I desperately don't want to do because I'm a member of this community. I believe in downtown. I sit on this board and volunteer my time because I want to see adaptive reuse and progression in our downtown community, not pull businesses that are a draw to downtown for our residents and for our visitors. So, you know, to say that I wouldn't do that is not off the table. But, you know, this is one of those situations where I have to look at the investments I've made, the 10+ years, 12 years of work that I've put into this business and its viability. And, you know, based off of, you know, what I know happened to Wild River Grill and the debt that they had to incur to remain in business from the Virginia Street Bridge, knowing, as you guys have seen, the Great Basin Co-op recently closed their cafe, citing the Arlington Bridge. The play field that was in the old Imperial building went out of business. The office bar went out of business. Marcelion's moved. Our bar, I know the owner of that business, he's been bartending at Birdie's for the last year and a half and not paying himself to keep our bar alive. I mean, the business impacts from these bridges is not projected. It's not a what if worst case scenario. These are real impacts that these businesses have actually had to endure. And I'm not willing to sign myself up to work for free for 2 years or a potential loss and fund the Eddy out of my personal revenue of other businesses I own to keep it alive. It's not something that I'm willing to do at this point in my career. So the reality of the situation is that the Eddy very well may be gone from downtown. And so this is what I view as the best alternative for that. But that's the way it is. Adrian had talked about the homeless's ability to, you know, be able to reside on that property without getting harassed and use the bathroom. The bathroom that has been installed will remain. That is outside of the extents of the proposed development, and I have no intention of displacing that. The planter area, the seating walls, all the stuff around the perimeter of my proposed use of the plaza that is to remain can still remain a place for the homeless to have, you know, a seat. I will also again remind that there is a very nice shaded area at the old bus station. It's also city-owned property where, you know, homeless can take a break, right? So I'm not here trying to attack the homeless. I'm not here trying to displace people. I'm here trying to strike a happy medium of what is progress, what is good for our downtown community and the business owners that, you know, receive benefit from the entourage effect of the Eddy, as well as, you know,
what is a good draw for people that come to visit the city of Reno that don't want to, you know, be holed up in the casinos all day. That is something that the Eddy has provided to this community for a long time. So I think that's it. Oh, when it comes to the 1-year lease, Mike, you know, that's kind of been a standard with city leases. I will say that the debt that I will have to take to spend, you know, a couple $1 million to relocate the Eddy would be the offset of what I'm currently paying in rent to clear that debt, right? So that's kind of how I'm looking at it is, you know, that what I'm currently paying in rent, which would then be going to financing costs to relocate the Eddy. But as you'll see in the LOI that I wrote, I am more than willing to and happy to pay a reassessed value of the city-owned property to what the assessor deems would be appropriate, and thereby paying property taxes above and beyond the $0 that this property is currently collecting at the county level. So, you know, that's something that I think is totally fair and is totally appropriate as well. So it's not just me trying to do a land grab at a rock bottom price. There are benefits to both the tax roll, but also justification for why the $1 per year lease was proposed, because there are going to be meaningful costs incurred to do this move, which is being initiated by forces that are outside of my control, right? I spent years, first 5 years of the business, paying myself $0 to clear all the debt. And only in the last 5 years of operations have I personally collected any profit from the Eddy. And now to look at the impending doom of this Virginia Street Bridge and the likelihood of having to take on massive debt again just to keep it alive, plus the distraction that I personally have to go through all the due diligence, permitting, entitlements, construction, et cetera, just to keep a business alive it's disheartening to say the very least. But I'm having to do it in defense of something that I've created that, yeah, has a personal benefit to me, but also a benefit to the community.
Okay.
Mike Van Houten, for the record, if the council or RDA board did decide to do an RFP process, would you just submit all of this as a RFP then?
Indeed. I mean, depending on how the RFP was written and what additional stuff is necessary. But again, I mean, as you guys know, I was the winner of the RFP to buy the Zero Riverside parcel from the city of Reno. I wrote a college thesis to buy something in market rate, right? I mean, with huge overhead investment from my staff to work through that. I would really appreciate not having to do that. In addition, the time that's going to take to go through. Right now, the potential of relocating the Eddy and being back open by next April, there's not a whole lot of time to get that done when you consider engineering drawings, lease negotiations, due diligence, permitting timelines, and construction. So I mean, you know, that timing, that few months that would be consumed by the RFP process is going to make it impossible for me to be back open for 2027. And so that's another reality of the situation where it's like, okay, I pull it up off there to perfect the terms of my expiring lease, but don't have anywhere to put it back, and you know, might as well not move it at that point. So that's part of the struggle and the challenges that I'm forced to navigate because of, you know, the impact of this bridge that is outside of my control.
I'll just make a comment, and then if there's any other final questions. I'm actually a big fan of this. If there's appetite on this board to do something more aggressive, I would definitely support that. I don't know if we have that here, but I personally think the Eddy's the only vendor that would work on this site. And I do see that space being underutilized. And I think it helps City Hall a lot better. It brings more life to that area. And I don't know that any other business can do that except for an outdoor space like the Eddy. That being said, I also would like to see buy-in from the community. And so just to go forward with something, exclusivity does bring pause. And I just want to throw that there, that I would be willing to go if the board had that something more aggressive. But other than that, I do want the community to buy in. I do want them to feel like they've had a chance to say, through an RFP or whatever it may be. But so I'll just leave that there. And if there's any other comments, or if anybody wants to propose action.
I can propose a motion.
Okay.
See what folks think. I would recommend that the proposal be forwarded to the redevelopment board for consideration, along with the comments and concerns that we've raised today, including the need to conduct additional due diligence before anything could move forward, exploring the highest and best use for the site, along with the concerns of an exclusive negotiating agreement, or concerns against, against an exclusive negotiating agreement, the rent amount, and concerns with the option to purchase. But no specific recommendation of approval, just to present to them for their further consideration.
Mike Van Houten for the record. My only issue is no matter what is proposed, it's still taking, at least 2 studies have said this should remain an open park space, which is the Virginia Street placemaking study and the open.
We probably get a second before the discussion.
And member Adams is online. He has seconded it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, second.
Okay, go ahead.
It's we have 2 studies that basically say this should remain an open park space of some kind. The One River study and the Virginia Street placemaking study, although they mentioned part of it would be good for retail, but to just shut off this entire space as a public park, and to have kind of have it fenced off, I can't see the vision of changing it from that, and I'd rather almost. And if it wasn't permanent, it would be a much easier sell for me, because then we're just filling it with something while we determine what the actual best use of this space is. But I know that Kurt's thinking that this is like permanent.
Well, if I could clarify my motion, I was not suggesting it be permanent. I was suggesting the opposite. I don't think council should pursue an option to purchase, but short lease is what I'm proposing. For $1. Right.
But what about renewing the lease, or options to renew the lease?
There's all those details are yet to be determined, because it comes down to what's the feasibility and financial. Someone's got to negotiate that. I'm not going to negotiate that on the table there.
Nettie Oliverio, sorry. Just going back to playing off your comment, consistently there has been the recommendation that the plaza as a whole stays open, but there has consistently been also the desire to have some kind of food and beverage or something on the RDA section of that. And, from the beginning, when it became a plaza, from the taking down of the Mapes, it was okay, what else? What commercially to bring people to that area, but not the whole thing. And so I would just go back to saying, we've talked about this a lot. Maybe we should listen to what we said.
Colin Robertson for the record. I was going to just add that, one thing after the Mapes came down, Peter Walker is a landscape architect in New York City who designed the 9/11 memorial site. And he developed a plan for a public site in that plaza after the Mapes came down. And it's one of many things in our community that has been planned and imagined and designed even to some degree, and then become an elaborate dust collecting device on a shelf or in a computer somewhere. I have, as I said earlier, I feel very positively about the Eddy, and I think there's been a lot of really great things to come from it over the last 10 plus years. But the sort of practice and use of this space now has clearly become a park space, in my view, and there's a lot of
privately owned public space in urban places all over the country, but they are not, that's precisely what they are. They are privately owned and they can be controlled as such. And I just do not favor converting public space to private space when we're already at a shortage of that kind of park and plaza space in the city. Any other comments? Okay, let's see where we're at on this vote. So there's a motion on the table. It's been seconded by Member Adams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's 4 ayes. All those opposed say nay. Nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? Motion passes 4-3.
You can come back in.
The
meeting concluded.
We have more items. There'll be public comment at the end of the meeting too, if you want to speak. All right, so the next item we're moving into now would be discussion and feedback to update the City of Reno Redevelopment Agency's participation programs and process framework. This is a discussion item. I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian McCardle, Revitalization Manager. To preface this item, the Redevelopment Agency, when it was starting to be brought back into life, needed some programs and processes specifically to deal with the proposal of the GSR Arena project. And so in April, just about a year or 2 years ago, this new program was drafted to include the SOD intent improvement, how we handle TIP applications, catalyst projects, disposition of property, and that was approved in August of 2024. So it's about 2 years. And it was our first attempt to capture some best practices across the country. And we've learned a lot since then, especially as the TIP applications have come in. We've received about 7. All of them have been previewed by this board, all except one, which was that the project was already near completion. That was the 118 West Apartments. And we've learned a lot since then. Other things have come up on the way we request information, how we conduct the gap analysis, how we review and approve projects, especially staff's role in that process as well. And, you know, you could call it growing pains in some way. With the red application that came before this body last month, with the request to do some additional due diligence on that, as well as the 521 Lake Street project, due to the few years left in RDA 2. A lot of these came up that now is the time to sort of revisit and consider potential changes to the Redevelopment Agency program. So in the staff report, there were multiple, and I know it's a lot, multiple proposed items to address. They're not really recommended changes. They're just suggestions on policy and items to be addressed. I can go through those one by one. They're grouped into future policy decisions, future things to address specifically the TIP programs that would include our restore, our resecure, resecure small walls, district activation, things like that. The next one is specifically related to our gap participation on TIP applications, how we acquire, dispose, and manage assets. And then the last is the capital improvement plan. And so those are the general categories. We can go through those and kind of get some initial thoughts and feelings, either broadly or specifically. And I'll mention that this is coming again on the workshop on 6/15. What we're looking for today is some guidance on should something be considered, any ideas you might have, and then possibly on 6/15 it can be addressed again with potential possible language that could be drafted to be considered for inclusion.
Nettie Oliveria for the record. First of all, I thought this was a document really, really well done. And there are a couple of, kind of wordsmithing situations I might suggest in there, but, just for clarity. I did want to say on page 9, there's, I believe, erroneous math there. And so The portion, I just was trying to hold on to it so I could let you know. The section about increment taxable value. And so anyway, that's the number I believe should be 202,300 as the multiplier from 2.89, $2.89. But anyway, I mean,
I will say that the increment rate, this is Brian McCardle again, the increment rate has changed with the assessor since this was adopted.
Okay.
Mainly due to legislative carve outs. So the rate has gone from 2.8948 to 2.8991.
Yep. That must account for it then.
Small nuance.
Mike Van Houten, for the record, do you think maybe it might move things along if anybody has ideas first, they throw them out instead of you having to go through that 40 or 50-page list one by one, where maybe half of it nobody even has any comment on?
I would welcome that, yes.
Ultimately, if I may, Mr. Chair, our ultimate goal is at your 6:15 workshop, we are looking for firm recommendations from you that we can take to the RDA in July in anticipation of editing and updating that document that was attached.
Sure.
There are certain things that we need the policy guidance from a staff level, and now that we've been in it a little bit longer, some things that you've brought up in your questions of what makes a catalyst and what makes it not a catalyst. Those are things that you probably won't be able to answer today, but we would implore you to think about. So then we have clear, bright lines at 6:15. Examples of when something becomes a material change, who pays for the next study. Things like that we currently, they're very vague right now, and as staff, we don't have that direction. So when you ask us, what should we do? Our answer is the same back to you because we don't have formal guidance. So yes, if you have ideas, we're happy to take that today and we can bring those back to you on 6:15, just knowing 6:15, we'll set it up with a presentation and there will likely be a yes or no option for a lot of these changes. So you can give us specific direction.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's helpful because there's a lot here.
There's a lot. This is why we brought it in, is this will be a 2-section because this is a lot. As Brian mentioned, he started in the April conversation, but really this was a document that was started many months in advance of knowing that we needed to get these guidelines around all of our programs. And there's more work to be done. So it's a lot to take in, and we know that.
Yeah.
Do you want suggestions back at this point, or do you want to wait for?
We're happy to take whatever, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry to step in.
If you have any initial comments now, that'd be great. I think for the rest of us, me for sure, I need to study this a little bit more, and I'll make sure I have something prepared.
And you can also email Brian and I with your comments. Do not email each other, please. That's a working quorum.
Right.
But you are also welcome if there are certain things that you have that are, we will incorporate those into the 6:15 meeting as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Do any comments initially though, Vice Chair?
I have some.
Vice Chair, I believe, has to leave at 1:10.
I do, and I just wanted to say, Colin Robinson, for the record, that I really appreciate this extensive list. It's gonna take a little bit of doodling, I think, in preparation for 6:15, but it's great that we have it. Appreciate that very much. I would just, I think this falls under the policy category and TIP category both, but one of the reasons that I was interested to join this board was for there to be opportunities to look at creative placemaking as a function of redevelopment. And that includes parks, it includes trails, it includes access to the river corridor, it includes supporting businesses, and revitalizing downtown Reno is about all of those things. And so I would like us to make a part of that conversation around policy and TIP related program support to be exploring how can we use this board's capacity to increase the vitality and vibrancy of places more than just business
support for the capital stack.
My ground for the record, just some things for my fellow board members to think about before our June thing. I did a lot of research on some of the policies of redevelopment agencies that we commonly compare ourselves to. Like the city of Boise, for example, they don't allow TIF financing for anything that isn't in their public, what do they call it? Public realm?
Their public realm.
Public realm.
Yeah.
And so things like design, architect fees, things like that, they don't qualify for TIF financing. One thing that Denver does that I liked is they require a deposit from the developer before any of this begins. In fact, well, they actually make the developer pay all consultant fees. So all the what we're paying to SB Friedman, they make the developer pay that. So maybe we could think about a balance between that and our open for business, mantra or model that we have. And then one thing I noticed with Boise, the way they score their TIF applications are much more, they have a lot more data elements that they use for scoring TIF applications than we do, such as placemaking elements and if it's LEED certified or not, and several other elements that we don't necessarily look at when we do the scoring that might send a message to developers that yes, we're open for business, but also you need to be really serious about your project before you bring it before us.
Yeah,
because I've been thinking in ways of guardrails, that we could put in place so we don't waste. Because I keep thinking, okay, well, we had 2 developers back out that paid the 30,000, right?
We paid.
Yeah, we paid the 30,000. What could we have used that money for?
I'm concerned with that too.
So just some thought to throw out.
Revisions and the revision.
Yeah.
Michael Pine, I've got to leave too. Sorry about that. I agree with what your comment is. I think applicants should have to pay something, certainly for the study, but developing that, we need to figure out that process a little better. Maybe there's an ability for them to roll that into the TIF later if they qualify and they're approved, but they got to have some skin in the game up front rather than us just spending a lot of money on applications that may never go anywhere.
Yeah.
I'd also like to see some way to get the downtown Reno partnerships input more formally or more frequently, whether it's a seat on this board or they're kind of boots on the ground and they can see what's working, what's not working. So I'd love to see some way to get them more, get more input from them on, especially our RDA1 projects downtown, what they're seeing that's working and not working. So we're not spending money where they may say, oh, that looks good for a week and then it gets trashed.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. But yeah, those are my comments.
That's good.
And then sorry, I got to run too.
Okay. Anything else on this? Okay.
Let me just highlight a few things before we go. The first one is, what discretion does staff have to review these? Right now, it's a bit subjective. We can't really tell no to someone, and the scoring process is a little bit ambiguous. So one of the things is possible pass-fail, meaning you have to check everything off the list and be fully eligible before it be brought forward. And that could be construction estimates, that could be, a labor and employment plan. It could be a full pro forma with all costs. Because right now you ask someone, give us the employment plan, and they say yes. The other thing is, and it's a bit ambiguous on the NRS level, but it could be a policy decision at this level, is at one point, does a project become ineligible, either due to construction activity has started, they're near completion, or possibly even finished? And then what construction elements would be okay as pre-development? So for instance, if someone goes in and demolishes the site or handles soil remediation, and then they come in for a TIF application, will we tell them, no, you've already started construction? So that's one thing to consider. The other one is the pass-fail and the requirements of information. I've always told people we should be the last money in, not the first money. And so a lot of people are saying, well, we'll do more due diligence if we get a yes from you first. And it's sort of saying, well, you should be already planning, we should have a site plan, et cetera. In practice, this becomes a challenge where if we're told that we're going to get all these things and then they start value engineering stuff out, or the public improvements are less, we never really had a benchmark to start with because we were never specifically told what we were going to get, the number of trees or what's the added improvements, even the number of units. And so I do think that raising the bar a bit could actually not only have more skin in the game if they financially participate, but also have more of the due diligence and homework done. Will also save us costs on the gap analysis side if the data is better. In practice, there's been multiple rounds of we need more numbers and more information from our consultant, which is one of the reasons why a lot of these have been stretched out so long. So a couple things to think about.
Mike Van Houten, for the record, I'm wondering if it would be useful by the time we have this workshop, if there could be a list of NRS driven rules that we can't change, just so we know what kind of we're up against. Policies that, are off limits so we don't focus on things that we can't change anyways. Or is it just
like telling them that the color blue is the only color you'll receive?
Yeah, or like that.
Just trying to come up with.
I remember something in the NRS statutes about just projects having to not have started construction before they get the funding is a good example.
Yeah.
Just so we know the perimeters that.
And
or we could just go read it if it's actually pretty simple to.
It's not simple.
Show me the NRS, that's simple to read.
279 is one of the most complex chapters. So understood, we will work for some things that are fully off limits. There's a fair amount of discretion when it comes to funding programs and projects. Ultimately, there are 7 findings that need to be made. And so that's something that you will start seeing those come forward. We bring those to the RDA because they ultimately are the ones that have to make the findings, but that will be something that will be included in language for you on these future projects so you can understand what their instance is as well.
Okay.
That's something that planning could work on as far as, like the checklist or the application to improve, like a conditional use permit, right? Here's all the things that have to be done. Is that something that some department within city staff
So that will fall to
could work on?
It's just that there's more discretion, but it is narrower.
Right.
Which I know it doesn't make much sense. It's those 7 findings. Does it benefit the area, and does it benefit the area by these 7 lists?
Right.
So those are the ultimate requirements that are needed. So, but the confine them where you can spend that money and how is much more narrow.
Yeah.
So we'll work up something to try to come up with a checklist that would help from that piece. Yeah.
And it makes sense. I mean, with the RDA would have needed more flexibility like that until now. Now it needs to, and now it needs to
when
start
you have no
to
money.
grow up a little bit more, right?
Brian McCarligan for the record. Denver you have to go through a design review that comes before their redevelopment design review committee. But they have design standards for their downtown, so it has to conform to whatever design standards. Ours are fairly loose. We've removed parking minimums, we've reduced setbacks. So we have no design standards downtown. But potentially having a design review portion where they do have to meet with planning to at least get in concept that what they're proposing is feasible, even from a zoning perspective. And maybe your setbacks are wrong, you gotta go, and then that changes the unit count. So everything changes once they're told that, this can and cannot be built.
It's either Denver or Boise where they also have to have a city council person sign off on it before it goes to the consultant phase too.
Interesting.
And that could be a potential recommendation as the review process gets reviewed again. At one point, what discretion does staff have to review these before it gets brought to you? What approval processes would you like to see? And in terms of the RDA board and even city council, some legislation says that there's the advisory board, the agency board, and then the legislative body, which is city council. But mainly it exists to create the agency and create the area. But there are some other additional responsibilities that council still has to play a role.
Okay, any item C, any kind of announcements from board members? Okay, item D, any future agenda items? We got a pretty pretty good rolling list. So, if you want anything added, then let me know. Move it into the fall probably. E, any public comment? Seeing none.
Did you say your name again? And
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my name's Nathaniel Phillips for the record. I really appreciate the good faith and well intentioned deliberation on the potential, and on the leasing proposal, and not to belabor any points. But I did want to appreciate, I think, member Robertson's point of clarification that this body doesn't, or these bodies only exist in our cities for the benefit of private businesses and capital. We can redevelop and use these spaces in creative ways. And it was very interesting to hear that such a prominent developer, like other sites that we see in Reno, there was a proposal to develop the Believe Plaza, and that didn't come to fruition. So just because a business has a proposal and it is a beloved business, we don't have to jump the gun. So I even would caution the motion that was passed. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not sure how to say the member's name. But I would also caution against the semblance of giving like official advice from this body to a business owner or proprietor who had a sitting application, because it could be interpreted as comments of ways to fix the application to make it look more appealing to this body. And I don't think that's his role. And that is the concern of impropriety. So I don't think he meant to do that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the legality around that, but by passing it on to our city council, we kind of know what they're going to do. They're not going to give it the same type of deliberation that this body would, and then they could take it and run with it and do something else. So I also welcome and thank Member Robertson's points about safeguards. Oh, excuse me, Member Van Houten. Sorry, your points about safeguards when you change these requirements for TIF projects that really protect our money. Businesses just don't get our money. You are the protectors of our money. So if Denver has downtown requirements for developing in their downtown, why does the city of Reno not have it? I don't know another major city, well, I'm sure they exist, that doesn't have a proper open plaza in their downtown corridor. And the last thing I'll say is, yes, if this does move forward, people are going to be incredibly upset, as one of the members mentioned. You can't have the 10,000 participant, or however many people were there, women's march when the Eddie's business is right there in the Believe Plaza. You couldn't have the Black Lives Matter march in the summer of 2020 when there's a business right in the Believe Plaza. It will fundamentally change the nature of what it is currently used as and what it's supposed to be used as. So, and I'm sure this will all be part of your future deliberations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, seeing no other public comment, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I got a motion to adjourn, second by Member Harris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.